Yes, you
Well,
do.
let's go ahead and get started. There might be a few more people to join, but good evening, everybody. Welcome back to those of you who attended the Better Money Habits Fundamentals workshop last week, and a warm welcome to the folks who are joining us tonight for the first time. I think I know most of you, but I'm Karen Milligan, and I have the great privilege of working here in our athlete leadership program with Special Olympics Illinois. I also have had the great pleasure of collaborating with our partners at Bank of America and the Better Money Habit Champion volunteers, Catherine Vaughn and Jill Hullitz. I'll let them introduce themselves in just a minute, but wanted to just share with you that Bank of America has been a global partner of Special Olympics for more than 3 decades. And in that time, they have significantly helped empower people with intellectual disabilities through their employee engagement efforts, including the Better Money Habits program and their focus on diversity and inclusion, thereby creating more inclusive communities. Tonight, they're partnering and working unified with one of our athlete leaders, Lisa Noble, to present the Better Money Habits Advanced Workshop. We're thrilled that you're all here tonight and have made a decision to empower yourselves with information you need to make smarter, more confident financial decisions. Because we have a larger group tonight and a lot of information to share, we will utilize the chat feature for any questions or comments you would like to share. If you're not comfortable with that, just raise your hand and we will call on you. Otherwise, we'll have everybody probably muted during the presentation. We will also be recording this workshop and making it available on the Special Olympics Illinois e-resources page. And we have a slide at the very end of the presentation with that email or website address. With that, I would like to welcome our presenter for tonight's workshop from Bank of America, Catherine Vaughn and Jill Hullitz and Lisa Noble.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, glad to be with you. I'll go ahead, this is Jill, and introduce myself, and then I'll turn it over to Kat, who will kick us off with the first section. So thrilled to be here again. I know some of you we saw last week. And I'm thrilled to be part of the Better Money Habits Champion, and thank you, Karen, for the kind introduction. I must say I have shared this information with several different nonprofits, but by far working with you talented group of athletes at the Special Olympics is by far my favorite audience. So we are here to support and help you with any of your financial questions. So please utilize the chat function. We've got some prepared material, but we are happy to answer whatever questions come to your mind. We want this to be most useful for you. So, nice to see all of you.
All right, everyone. I am Catherine, but everyone calls me Kat, except for maybe my mom. So I hope that all of you will feel free to call me Kat as well, as my mom is not on this call. I have been a Better Money Habits champion for several years now, and I am a Better Money Habits champion because I like to help people figure out what to do about their money. Okay, that's really the bottom line. I really, really, really like talking about budgeting. I know that's boring, but that's who I am. I like talking about making a plan. I like helping spending goals and get some financial freedom. So all of those things are important to me, and I am excited to help you where I can. So if I learned anything from last week, which I actually learned a lot from last week, but one of the things that I know is that you also have a lot of great information and really learn from each other. So hopefully we can keep that going this week as well. All right, so a few topics we want to cover tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about spending and saving, particularly just making a plan, figuring out where your money is going to go and give every dollar a job. Okay, that's really what I'm going to talk about. Lisa is going to talk to like where to put it. And then Jill is going to dive a little deeper into making a plan for your money, specifically where it talks about prioritizing and some things like car loans and student loans and things like that. So I want to start by talking about the money coming in, right? So income versus the money going out, which is expenses. And Karen, I think if we can go to that first slide. There we go. Perfect. So I think based on our conversation last week and our conversations just in the last few minutes, that probably most of you have a pretty good handle on the difference, right? Money coming in, that's my income. And that can be income from a job, that could be income from like a Social Security or some sort of assistance check. That could be money that I get from maybe you share a living space and somebody pays you rent or somebody gives you an allowance. So lots of different forms that income can take, but income's always the money that comes in. That's where the name comes from, right? And then money, unfortunately, often does not stay with us. It goes out in the form of expenses. So what we're going to focus a little bit on is figuring out what those expenses look like, prioritizing those expenses, and then making sure that you have some money after your expenses to save, right? How many of you, maybe you can just put in chat if you do, how many of you have a budget or a spending plan of some kind? Georgia does, great. Get some time to chat. Kind of, Eric, that's fair. Not everybody has it like formal, but they've got maybe just a rough plan in their head. Daniel, you've got a plan, okay. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to put together a plan. So if you have one, you can use this as an opportunity to revisit your plan and say, does this, is this doing everything we want it to do for us? Lisa, I remember that because you and I are Excel buddies. I'm an Excel person too. So I have mine in Excel as well. So if you have a plan, you can use this exercise to go, does this plan maybe this is a good opportunity to look at it and say, does this work for us? If you don't have a plan, this is a good opportunity to figure out how to start putting one together. When we talk about income, and we touched on this last week, you've got to know how much is coming in. Do we get every dollar of our, so if you have a job and they say they're going to pay you $10 an hour, $14 an hour, do you get all of that money? No, right? Georgia does. All right, it depends on how you get paid. Where does some of that money go? Anybody think where some of that money ends up going out to? Taxes, Social Security. Yeah, taxes, Social Security, those are the big ones. Sometimes you're going to have to pay, for some employers, maybe you pay a little bit towards the insurance that they offer you. Sometimes you might have, you might choose to use some of their investment. And so they take that off the top. But yeah, a lot of it goes to the government to pay for the things we all enjoy, right? Schools and roads and firemen and all that good stuff. That's what your taxes really pay for. So it goes to a good cause, but it comes out. So when we talk about income, you want to make sure whatever plan you do, that you are starting with what's called your net pay and not your gross pay. Your gross pay, I don't know why they call it gross, because it's not gross at all. Gross is what you get paid upfront. So that's the hourly times the number of hours that you work. Net pay is going to be what you actually get to make a plan for, because that's what you're actually going to get to take home and spend on your expenses. So it's important whenever we talk about income that we are focusing on that net number. Good question, Georgia. Net is really just if you, so let's say I worked 10 hours and I was going to get paid $10 an hour for each hour, right? So that's going to be 10 times 10. That's, anybody know that math off the top of their head? $100.
100.
Yeah, you got it. So that's $100. Now that's my gross pay. Okay. That is what I earned based off the number of hours and my hourly wage. But I got to put a little bit of money in the Social Security system. Maybe I got to pay Medicaid. I got to take a little bit of money towards taxes to pay my part of firemen and policemen and roads and all that good stuff. So let's say I only get to take home $75 out of that $100 after I pay my taxes and that's my net pay. That was a good question. Thank you for asking it, Georgia. So when we talk about making a plan, you don't want to make a plan using your gross pay because you're going to end up short at the end of the month. Okay. Always make a plan from your net pay. Any other questions about that one before we move on? All right. All right. Yeah, go for it. So, oh yeah, we already, look, there was a helpful slide and I just skipped right over it. I just talked you through it. But there is, when you get these resources, there is if you go back through the replay, there's your walkthrough. So your gross pay, less any deductions. Sometimes you have optional deductions. That would be health insurance, retirement accounts. What you get to take home, that's your net pay. All right. We already talked about the potential sources for income. So I'm going to move ahead to make sure we got time to talk about the sheet. This document. This is something that Karen sent out. Daniel, I think Karen will be able to send those out or at least give you the link to where they are, because they're all on a site and you'll have plenty of access to them. You're absolutely right. We want to make sure everybody gets to go through these. This document, though, I think Karen sent it out. If not, we'll make sure you get a copy. She's going to pull up a bigger version so that my eyes can see it. But this is a great tool to use to start your plan. So if you are trying to figure out, how do I even start making a plan for my money? This worksheet, at the very top, you can set some goals, right? So maybe we have a goal to save for a trip. Daniel, I know you like to travel. Georgia, maybe there's a baking tool that you're like, really, I can't wait to buy this this new muffin pan or special tool for baking. I'm such a good baker. I can't even think of anything beyond a muffin pan. But anybody else have an idea? There you go, a new mixer, big KitchenAid mixer. Anybody else have an item they might want to save for? Well, and what Karen's filling out is the vacation, Lisa. That's a good one. Yeah, so what Karen's filling out, a new car. Jose's setting its sights big. But Karen's filling out the most important part, right? So you figure out what you want to save for, then you got to figure out the cost. Because if you don't know how much it costs, you don't know how much you need to save, this whole plan is going to be really difficult. And we talked a little bit about that last week, for those of you who were here, when we talked about, I think Jill used the example of a bike and trying to decide, okay, if I want a $300 bike and I can only put $10 aside every month to save up for a bike. So maybe I want to look for other ways to bring in some extra money. Maybe I want to cut my expenses. Making a plan for your money is all about making sure that you get to put your money to work doing the things that you want to do with your money. Okay. At the end of the day, oh, that's a very good question, Brandon. We're going to talk about that. Jill is going to talk about making us as a monthly expense. So we will get there. But at the end of the day, you want your money to work for you. You worked really hard for it to do what you want it to do. There are going to be things you can't avoid paying, right? We got to have a roof over our heads. So maybe we got to pay rent. We got to have food. We got to have transportation. So there are going to be some expenses that you have to pay. And then there's going to be the things that you want to do, and you're going to have to decide which is really important to me. Maybe I really, really want this new mixer, but because I didn't have a plan, I at Starbucks or 7-Eleven that really wasn't as important to me as the mixer. But I didn't put my money to work doing the things I wanted it to do. So make a plan. This worksheet is a great place to figure. First step is make a plan, and then you got to check your plan, right? So you'll see there's a column for planned spending, and then there's a column for actual spending. So I planned to spend $20 on out-of-home food. Maybe that's what I decided, okay, this is all I can afford to do. And then at the end of the week, I add it all up and it turns out I spent $80 on out-of-home food. Well, something's got to give, right? Either my plan has to change or my actions have to change.
He doesn't know she's the baker.
Question? I think I heard somebody on mute. All right. Go through this. We're not going to have time to do it all together tonight, but at some point, my recommendation is to go through this list, find the things that you know you have to spend money on, right? Figure out what you think you spend money on. Like, what do I think I spend on public transportation? What do I actually spend? Do that experiment, okay? And then adjust. This is a constant process. At the end of the day, that total expenses line at the bottom, can that be more than my income? Should it be? It's not going to be good, right? It's
Being a
going
lot
to
of notes here. That's correct.
yeah, it's going to be a problem. So yeah, you definitely want to keep that total expenses line less than your net income. So that's why you have to find out what's coming in, make a plan for what's going out, and if your plan is more than what's coming in, then you got to make a new plan, or you got to figure out how to bring more in. And that's all about making decisions.
Kat, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is this document set up that if you put your pay in here, it automatically will formulate what your expenses and what your bottom line will be?
I'm going to say no, because you put 20 in there and there's no total. So that would be great. If it would probably, it would not be hard to add that in. In fact, I bet Lisa could even do that with her Excel capabilities, but I think we could probably get you a copy that does, because you're right, that would be really helpful if it would just automatically add that up for you. Good question. All right. In the interest of time, because Lisa and Jill both have good information for you as well, and I want to move on, we're going to watch a video that talks a little bit about making making choices when you spend. So kind of making some decisions when you're shopping about where your money goes. And then we're going to turn it over to Lisa for a bit.
Bringing your lunch to work can save you hundreds of dollars a year. If you're doing that, definitely keep it up. But let's look at a few other ways you can save money every day. Shopping for food is a great place to start trying to save because there are a lot of easy ways to cut down on your shopping bill. You may already be doing things like making a shopping list so that you only buy the things you need, or clipping coupons. But there are even more ways you can save. When you go shopping, look for things that are on sale or brands that cost less to save on what you need. If you always buy one
Oh,
box
you
of
stuck
the
your
same brand
Bluebirds, so you got a big
but you see that it's on
old.
sale, 2 boxes for the price of 1, you can save money by buying 4 boxes. But make sure not to buy things you don't need just because they are on sale. And while you're thinking about your needs, spend on what's important, save on what's not. For example, for some people, things like your favorite brands might be important to you over another brand. For others, what's important may be different. The point is that it might be worthwhile to spend a bit more on the items you care about, but look for ways to save on the things that are less important to you to keep you on track. Making simple trade-offs like these can help you save money without giving up what's important. Finally, before you even make a shopping list, think about your actual eating and cooking habits. It's a good idea to plan your meals ahead of time. This may help you avoid tossing out spoiled groceries that you didn't eat, or ordering takeout because you didn't buy enough food for the week. You can save lots of money this way. It can be easy to follow others into overspending. But try getting creative and sometimes plan activities with your family and friends ahead of time that can help you avoid spending too much on things like going to restaurants. Saving money doesn't have to mean giving up fun, but being careful about where your money is going and how small changes can really add up over the long run can help you save money every day.
Thank you, Kat, and I hope everybody enjoyed that video. Now let us move on to where you keep your money. If your money is in the form of cash, you probably keep it in a wallet or purse, or even in a safe place at home. But as you become more financially independent, you will have more money than you can safely keep in a wallet. A bank offers you different choices for places that you can keep your money. Have any of you used a bank before? You can raise you guys' hands, so. Great. There are 2 types of accounts you can choose from when you keep your money in a bank. And that is the checking accounts and savings accounts. Let's start with a checking account. Does anyone here have a checking account? Again, you guys can raise your hands, so. Great. A checking account is a great place to keep your money because it's easy to access. It's safer to keep your money in a checking account instead of in cash in your wallet or at home, because your money can be stolen from your wallet, just like we talked about identity theft last week, and is safer in a bank account. You might keep money in a checking account to use for everyday expenses, such as paying for bills or doing grocery shopping. A checking account comes with a debit card, which is a plastic card that looks like a credit card with your name and account number on it. It lets you take money out of an ATM and make purchases at many stores. You also receive a checkbook, which lets you write checks to pay for bills and other expenses. It's important to write down how much money you take out of your checking account or your ATM, just to make sure that you know how much is left in your account, and you don't want to overspend, because if you do, it's become overdrawn and the bank will charge you a fee. A checking account lets you track your monthly expenses. If you pay for everything in cash and you want to track your spending, you'd have to save all of your receipts. If you have a checking account, you can track your spending by looking at your bank statement. The downside of a checking account is that, unlike a savings account, it usually does not grow with interest. This means that, unlike a savings account, you will not get more money for simply keeping your money in a checking account. Another type of account we'll talk about is an ABLE account. Does anyone here have an ABLE account? Or did I miss something? An ABLE account is like a savings account. It's a different kind of. It's like a savings account, but it's for people that qualify, or that have disabilities, and it also doesn't affect your Social Security or any of your public aid benefits. You have to have a disability that was before you were 26 years of age and meet the other criteria. Each state kind of has a little bit of their own different criteria. The maximum amount of contributions to an ABLE account in Illinois each year is currently $15,000, substantially more than you can put in any other type of accounts. The advantages of an ABLE account are eligible individuals and their families will be allowed to establish savings accounts that will not affect their eligibility for SSI, SSDI, Medicaid, or other benefits. Your savings grow with interest, meaning your money will earn just by simply keeping your money in there and not spending it. And like a savings account, it's easy to track your savings progress. The disadvantages of an ABLE account are there are restrictions around who can use it and how they can use it. And like a savings account, it's more difficult to access and to spend money. You can only open an ABLE account online. The website for the Illinois ABLE account is ablenow.com, and I believe we're going to put that in the chat as well. You are also issued a debit card and have the option of giving another debit card to your family member or someone you trust. And you can also sign up for direct deposit. My husband and I have our separate ABLE accounts, and we try to put at least 10% of our income in each of them. Some of the things we use it for are our annual trip to Disney World, sports, unexpected expenses. One good example of having an ABLE account for unexpected expenses is back in April, I cracked my tooth on a boneless wild wing that I thought was boneless, but then there was a bone in it. So since we had the money in the ABLE account, I was able to get my tooth fixed. So I didn't have to take any money out of checking. Because making the decision about what type of account to use can be a little complicated, it's a good idea to talk with a parent, caregiver, or someone you trust about the advantages, disadvantages, and rules for these different choices. Does anybody have any questions?
Lisa, could you go back and cover the savings account?
Oh, sure. I noticed that I had skipped that one. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
So, excuse me. So there's also the savings account. So an advantage of the savings account, other than having a checking account, is that it grows with interest as long as you don't touch it. And it's easier to track instead of a checking account. the only disadvantage is it's more difficult to access and spend. And also for people that have Social Security as well as Medicaid, you can only, for both checking and savings, one of the disadvantages is that you can only have a certain amount in there at one time. So that's why one of the reasons why they came up with the ABLE account. Does anybody have any questions? All right, now I'm going to kick it back to Jill, where she'll go over about student loans and debt.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm going to jump in real quick before we kick it to Jill, but I appreciate you sharing your experience with the ABLE account. She touched on the different ways to pay: cash, check, debit card, prepaid card, credit card. Cash is limited right now, right? Last week we were talking about using your phone, so the mobile pay is an option, but mobile pay it still has to link to an account, right? You can't just, your phone isn't going to pay the bill. You got to have money in an account somewhere. So even if you're paying with your phone, it's got to go to some sort of an account. So checking, savings, ABLE account, yeah, an online banking account is a good example, Eric. So just want to make sure you pick an account, and maybe you have a checking and a savings account, because maybe you want the checking for things like groceries and rent and paying for the bus. And maybe you want the savings account to save for things like Lisa was talking about, savings account, savings or an ABLE account for vacation or for those unexpected. Or Jose saving for a car. You definitely don't want to have easy access to that money, or you'll end up spending it, right? So yeah, she did a great job, Kaylee, you're right. So with that, Brandon, you asked why we didn't have a line for credit on the budget. And Jill is going to talk to us a little bit about credit and debt and why maybe you don't want a line for that.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about how to manage and pay bills with some tips, really to stay organized and make sure as you looked at all those line items that we had on the budget from Kat, that you're carrying that all the way through and making the payments. So you can flip ahead to the next slide. So the first thing is about getting organized. It might seem obvious, but you really want to know, and the budget is a good tool to do this, is to make a list of all of your bills and then have a place that you organize your bills. So whether that's you find a place in a drawer, you have, some kind of a basket you put them in, and make sure that you open all of your bills. It can be tempting to not maybe pay attention to all of the things that could come through an email and click through, or to open all of your mail. But the first thing about staying on top of what you owe is knowing what it is and staying organized around it. Then you got to create the plan. So that's what Kat talked about. And in not only knowing how much you owe, but when you owe it. So it is a good idea to use a calendar. It can be a paper calendar, it can be an online calendar, but what you want to know is when your bills are due and who you have to pay that to. So one thing that maybe not everybody knows is if you look at when your bills are due and you look at when you get paid, when your income comes in, it is better if your bills are due soon after you get paid. So let's say you get paid every 2 weeks, and the day before you're about to get paid, all your bills came due, but you might not have that much money left. So it could be tempting to wait till the next day, but then the bill is late. What you can usually do is contact the person that you're making the payments to, and very often now they can help you move around due dates. If they can't, what you want to make sure you do is even pay them early while you have the money from your paycheck, because waiting until it's due, if it's after you've spent money, can be dangerous, because what you might do is pay late then. And then make it as easy on yourself as possible. There are lots of places that will take the money right out of your checking or savings account. So a good example is your utility bill. If you have to pay a utility bill, you can sign a form that said, yep, when my electric bill or my water bill is due every month, just come and take that out of my checking account. I know that's what I do, because I don't always think about it. Our water bill, especially, because it only takes the money out every other month, and I never could remember which month it was. So it is better if they come and take the money every other month. You can also, I saw some of you said you use online banking, and that's exactly another way to stay well organized. And that is to go in and set up that account, put in who the money should go to, and you can do this for any bill you have. You can indicate who it's going to get paid to. You type in their address once, and then you can schedule the payment. Or when you get that bill in the mail, if it's not the same amount every month, all you have to do is go in and enter the amount. You don't have to retype in the name and their address. You just get to do that once. So online banking or mobile banking gives you lots of tools that allow you to stay organized. So if there's not questions there, now on the next page here, I've got some steps. So the first one I already covered, know what you owe and who you owe it to. There were some specific questions we got early about student loans. For the student loan, you also need to know who that lender servicer is. So you might have borrowed to go to some particular university, but now that loan is with a lender servicer, not the place that you maybe paid to go to school. And then you use that budgeting tool that Kat walked us through, and you want to decide how much you can pay. You might have charged something on a credit card that was more than what you could pay that month. So now what you have to do with the budgeting tool is to figure out how much you can pay toward that bill. Maybe you charge that $300 mixer. So what you want to say is, how much do I want to pay toward that $300 mixer that I charged? For student loans, they have different kinds of repayment plans for how long you want to pay based on how much you can pay. So once you know how much you can pay, you can contact that lender servicer and walk them through your budget, and they will help you select a repayment plan. So you don't have to figure it out by yourself. They will give you options among all of their repayment plans. For your own credit card bills, you have to decide how much you can pay. And here, number 3 is something that not everybody probably knows, but if you can't pay, while you might feel badly about that, the first thing you want to do is talk to the person you owe the money to, because every place will work with you. And know that. And the sooner that you have the conversation, the easier it is to figure out a plan. It happens to many people that when they do that budget exercise and the income side is not enough to cover the expense side, they say, and what they do is they ignore it. You don't want to do that. You want to say, I can make a plan. You want to call the person, keep record of your conversations, and they will help you figure out a plan. And that is number 4. You want to figure out which are the bills that you might owe for that you want to pay off first. So if there's any extra money on your budget, know who you want to pay off first, but always pay everyone on the due dates or by the due dates. Don't skip paying a payment at all. And so now I'm going to ask for a couple of ideas perhaps in the chat function, because number 5 says if you're trying to pay things off or you owe more than what your income is, you can be creative. You can find ways to save money, which means there's more left over to pay bills. Does anybody have that they could share in the chat function what might be some creative ways to do that? Has anybody thought about a way to maybe spend less in order to pay more on the things they owe? I think we saw 1 or 2 ideas in the video. I don't know if any of those resonated with anyone. Don't buy your wants like video games. Good idea, Brandon. Spend less on coffee. That is my favorite one. I once added up how much I was spending at Starbucks, and I decided I would buy a good coffee machine and a really nice coffee cup. And I have saved so much money when I added up in a year. And I can use that to pay my bills or save for my vacation. Oh, I like that, Kat. We can watch Georgia's cooking show and do less takeout. So when you want to either pay off bills faster or make sure you can pay all of the bills you owe, one of the secret ways to do that, hidden ways to do that, is being creative about what you spend. And then, as Kat said, you've got to check in on that budget. It changes. Lots of things change in our lives. We might move, we have to take different transportation. What if we now have to take an Uber to get to the train? We have to budget that in. If you move, your rent could change. Maybe you didn't have to pay utilities and now you do. So the budget has to be a living and breathing thing that you check in on all the time, especially if something in your life changes. And that is important also with your student loan. Once you find a repayment plan, if something in your life changes, you want to call them back and say, I want to talk about my repayment plan because something in my life changed. And so once you pick your repayment plan, you don't have to stick with that one. You can change the options as your life changes. You can go to the next slide. So choosing the best payment plan for you, and the you is the most important part there. If you know your goals and you know what you can pay each month, that is going to help you be in control of your repayment plan. A question we often get is it better to pay a little bit on everything to know you can pay everything, or should you take a long time to repay, but pay a little bit? You can do that. One of the things you want to know is you will pay more. So if we go back to the mixer and it's $300, because it's on your credit card, they're going to charge you interest. So you will pay more for the mixer if you pay 3 months, $30 a month over 10 months to pay the $300, or than you would pay if you paid the $100 a month over 3 months, because if you pay the $30, they're going to charge you interest. So that is the balancing about knowing what you can afford to pay, but then sticking with your plan. And as your income changes or your expenses changes, always rebalancing that. So what is the a lesson I want to leave you with? It's really not to miss your payments, and calling and contacting the person you owe it to if you can't, even before you've missed a payment, and knowing that life events are going to change your budget. They change all of our budgets. And so sticking with looking at your budget and what you're spending regularly and making changes to it will make sure that you pay for the things you want. And I love what Kat says, make all the dollars work for you and make sure that you're putting the money toward the things that are most important to you. And I think with that, we have there's some resources here that will be in the material if you have specific questions on student loans. And from there, I think we're going to open it up to any questions on any of the topics that we've covered and subjects we've heard from Lisa or Kat or myself.
Really good questions in the chat about, Daniel was just asking about interest. That's one of the things to keep in mind is when you are talking about, when you're trying to decide, am I going to buy this now, maybe with a credit card and pay it off over time by paying my credit card a little each month? Or am I going to put my savings account and wait to buy the thing that I really want? That's a tough choice sometimes. And sometimes you may have to decide, I can't wait. I need a computer to do my work for school. So I've got to do that now, and I'm going to have to pay it off over time on a card. Sometimes it can be a bike and you go, well, I'm going to wait and put that money in savings and just buy it when I can pay for it in full. Both of those are fine decisions. You just need to understand that you have the power to make a decision, and that if you decide to pay it off over time on a credit card, there's some extra costs, right? It's going to cost you a little bit more because you're going to, like Daniel was saying, you're going to end up paying them interest. You might end up paying have the card or something like that. So just want to always, the thing with your money is always remember that you're in control, right? You get to decide, what's my money going to do for me? And every decision limits the ability of that money to do, like, you can only do so many things, right? So if you decide to attend a Better Money Habits presentation, you can't also be watching TV at the same time. Your dollars can't do two things at the same time either. So if you decide to use it for this, it's not going to be available for that. You just need to make your decision on which is the most important. But you get
That's why I like writing it down. To me, when I see it written down, it helps me think about whether I made the choices I would want to make. If I'm thinking about only the fact I might want a new computer, I'm not thinking about all of the other things I maybe can't be doing with that money or other bills I'm not paying. When I see it all written down, it helps me make better choices. Yes, and there's a nice tip I see from Daniel. I could have put that on the slides. When you are going to buy something, make sure you are looking for discounts. I love that as a creative tip. So always search around. Sometimes it's where you work gives you a discount. Sometimes your school gives you a discount. Sometimes there's just discount codes on the computer somewhere. Honey is one of my favorite ones. That is a really, really good tip. So whatever you're buying, if you can save money on it, you definitely want to do that.
Yeah, taking advantage of those employee discounts. Good option. Is anybody inspired to go make a plan for their money?
I do.
Nice, Georgia. Well, you're going to be a big cooking show star, so you should make a plan now. So that
Yeah,
when all that
so
money
by the
starts
time-
rolling in, you got a plan.
Yeah, so by the time when my parents come back,
Yeah,
my mom's going to help me.
yeah, exactly. That's a great point because it's good to get help on this. I always like to have somebody else take a look at it because maybe I missed something. I forgot about rent. Who forgets about rent? But you know, maybe you forget something that you have to pay. Maybe it only comes up once a year. Maybe somebody else goes, actually, I don't think you spend that much money on Starbucks. You're really good about saying no when we stop or something like that. So it's always good to have somebody else look at it with you. That's a great plan. Brandon's working on. Eric, that is great advice. Pay the most important first. Daniel, you have a really good question about reading the different lines on your pay stub at work. It's going to vary a little bit depending on, like, everybody's paycheck is formatted a little bit different, but you'll have some of the same lines. And I know in the deck that Karen's going to send out, there is, I'm trying to find if I have it up here. I think there's a picture of a pay stub when we were talking about gross and net. There was a picture of a pay stub that had some of the most common ones. Your federal tax, state tax, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. You may have a retirement line on there. It's a good idea to find somebody that you are willing to share your pay information with. Yeah, you've got a 401k on yours. It's a good idea to sit down. Maybe it's even just, this is a good question to ask a boss or a manager to say, hey, can you walk me through what all these line items are? Yeah.
And usually your human resource department is another place to go. They might even have a guide. Every place uses, I think, as Kat was saying, a little different format, but also different letters and numbers, acronyms. So your human resource department might have a guide to help you interpret that, or somebody in human resources would be more than happy to walk through, because each company uses their own kind of set of abbreviations for things, but they would be able to help you.
Yeah.
It will always be for the same things we talked about, but
Yeah,
what they call it is hard to sometimes figure out on your check.
Yeah, everybody uses slightly different abbreviations. They might put it in a different place, but this is a good slide, Daniel, to refer back to, because these are usually, now depending on what state you live in, I don't know if anybody's here from Texas, but Texas does not pay a state income tax. So that's not across the board. So that'll vary. But there's the Medicare tax, and then whether you pay some towards your insurance or your retirement. It is always a good idea if something doesn't look right, or if you don't understand a bill, a paycheck, a statement account from your checking account or your savings account. If something on there doesn't seem quite right, or if you don't know what it is, ask your boss if it's a paycheck, if it's your bank. I have called my bank before because the hardware store around the corner from me, every time I shop there, I forget. They always show up on my debit card and my credit card as GAH, and I never know what that is. And so the first few times I saw it, I had to go back and be like, GAH, where, what? And we just moved, so I have spent a lot of money at the hardware store lately. So sometimes it was a pretty big amount, but I had to call my bank and be like, what is GAH? And she was able to say, oh, it has a hardware store category attached to it. And then I go, oh, I think I know what that is. but it's always good to ask.
Yeah, there are really no dumb questions when it comes to managing your money, managing your bills, understanding your paychecks. So if you have the question, ask it. I don't think there's any dumb questions anytime, but when it comes to your money, there are no dumb questions. You
Yeah.
want to understand it. And if somebody is charging you, they're going to explain it to you. So just ask.
I like the phrase money boss. Okay, you're the money boss. So you want to make sure you're in charge of your money. You ask, if you're in charge of it, ask questions. Say, all right, I'm the money boss, right? And this is my money and I'm in charge of it. I'm going to figure out what's true. Do I have to pay this much? Is there a discount available? Is there, sometimes if you pay, I know for like insurance, sometimes if you pay it all at once instead of paying it every month, you can save money. So ask those questions. Make sure that money's working for you. You work hard for it. Make it work hard for you. You guys had great questions. Do you have more? Karen, I'm glad it was a good, I think that's the goal is to use our money to be independent, right? That's my goal. I want my money to give me the independence to do what I want to do what's important to me. So.
Yeah, so your budget should be as unique as you all are. None of our budgets will be the same because everybody is going to have different income and everybody is going to want to do different things with their money. And so that is the help of writing it down and planning so your money reflects what you want to get out of it.
Bye, Georgia. Thanks for.
Bye, guys. I love you. I'll be back next week.
All right, bye. I can't wait to check out your cooking show.
Yeah, I'm going to find my way to that as well. That sounds awesome.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Mom.
Well, a big thank you to Jill, Kat, and Lisa. I think it was really informative, greatly interactive by everyone. I hope you all found it as beneficial as I did, and some great takeaways with the worksheets. I will share the slides with you all tomorrow, as well as the recording we will upload to our Special Olympics Illinois e-resource page, and I'll share that with you. If we can get that advanced spending worksheet in, with the Excel formulas built in, I will share that as well with everyone. But again, please help me thank Kat and Jill and Lisa for great presentations, not only tonight, but last week. You guys did a great job and really love the information that you shared with us.
It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate the interaction we talked about last week that I don't get out much these days. So I really enjoyed visiting with all of you and learning from all of you and just getting to chat. Hopefully we'll get to do it again soon. So.
Hey, Karen, I see a couple of questions came through on the chat about bankruptcy and Social Security and moving to different states. I will email you some answers that you can include with the material as we wrapped up. Those are a couple good questions right at the end there.
Yeah.
And prior to starting tonight, we talked about maybe doing a once a month type series. So if you're interested in that, or if you have any other topics that you'd like us to dive a little deeper in or things we didn't cover, please share that with me. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are, and I'm sure we've got some ideas as well too. But again, thank you all for attending. Everyone have a great rest of your week and stay safe and healthy. Great seeing everyone tonight.
Bye, everyone. See you.
Bye.
Bye.